Oh no,
Yeah.
it's not. I forgot it has a countdown.
Darkfire just wanted a leg up on everyone. He started a full 5 seconds before the rest of us.
Yes.
Just making sure
Well, you
we're
know,
ready at any
the
time.
early Eldritch being gets the worm, I guess.
The early Eldritch being gets the worm.
Yeah, that's you know, I do wonder. You know how in my video intros I do ladies, gentlemen, and funny third thing for non-binary people?
Yes, I recall that.
I do wonder what I can get away with those, because my criteria is that they have to be obviously affectionate, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're gonna have to explain the whole frog thing to us.
No,
like,
not the.
I was like,
no.
man, this is very inclusive of like amphibians, you know.
No. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I was like, okay, so if I was like ladies, gentlemen, and frogs, what would happen?
I can see some people.
I mean, like, because I do appreciate how you joke about it for the most part, but I do think that there is like a point that you could get to that would be too far away from a binary people existing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I know I definitely had that experience with things where sometimes not with yours, but like with certain people's attempts at that type of thing, where I'm like, can you not make my identity a joke?
Sure,
You know?
sure.
Like I had some that I rejected. Like
Yeah.
I had one that I thought was funny, but I didn't use because of this reason. It was ladies, gentlemen, and unidentified flying objects.
Sure, which is a little too removed from the humanity. I think it's fun too, because to delight in non-binary identities means that you kind of have to come up with like frames that people can see themselves in. So I understand the balance between cracking up a joke in an inclusive call people in sort of way, as opposed to calling people out sort of way.
There's a trick to it. There's a trick to it, and I think.
And sure. I've been thinking about it a lot recently, because in my latest video I have the ladies, gentlemen, and those of you who defeated gender in single combat.
I love that. Hell yeah.
And it went viral on Mastodon.
Oh yeah,
that's
awesome. That's awesome.
The only Mastodon post. The first viral Mastodon post. There's nothing else on there.
There's only one. Mastodon got their one.
Viral.
We like Mastodon.
I consider it viral for the size of the instance it's in, and Mastodon as a platform. I consider 1,000 likes viral on Mastodon.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a pretty high number for
Mastodon. And the tweet, I guess it's a tweet in Mastodon, right?
I hate to call it toot. No, it is a toot. T-O-O-T.
Yeah. Sorry, it's toot.
It's like, why? I do not want to use their website half the time specifically because it has the word fucking. I don't want to. I don't want to fart into the internet.
Yeah. I mean, it's a more accurate description of what Twitter is up to these days, I feel.
But okay, yeah. So the toot was just. I recently heard someone say, and then
the line,
ladies, gentlemen, and yeah. So it was just I heard someone say, and I commented on it. I was like, "Hi, I believe that was me."
Nice.
And they were like, it was you. Sorry, I didn't credit you. I didn't know it would blow up.
Like, pop off like this.
And then they, to their credit, they did post the video.
Can you imagine, you're holed up, right, in the furthest reaches of the internet, like in some Mastodon instance that nobody has ever heard of, and Darkfire finds you. You just breaks down your door, just like, hey,
there is
this
no
is
escaping Darkfire. He is no.
Yeah. So okay, so the thing about that, right? I learned about the whole Mastodon. You can open a link and open the post on the original instance, and that way you can see all of the replies, but you still can't interact with them. Apparently the how Federation works is that like interacting with replies from other instances, it's what's unnecessarily difficult. So there's there's all of these replies there that are so positive and wholesome that I want to interact with, and I just can't. And I'm like, God damn it, Mastodon! It's like my first real big frustration with Mastodon, but whatever, it's fine.
I have very trepidatiously used Mastodon. I like it. I like the longer format, but there are aspects of it that I'm just, as somebody who quickly loses their technical intuition once I get into social media, I'm just like, I guess I'm doing this correctly. For all I know, no one's seen any of my posts on Mastodon because I'm probably not even logged in, so it's fine.
Yeah, it works, and you don't even know. And usernames work weirdly there. It's this whole thing. Anyway, hello and welcome to Video Gems, the podcast where we interview video essayists, game designers, and artists of all kinds about their process, art, and just various miscellaneous things. I am your host, Darkfry. I am here with my co-hosts, Aranock and Harry from Video Games Are Bad. And with us here, we have our first special guest of the podcast. Please introduce yourselves, and in the introduction, please include name, channel name, occupation, favorite hobby, and credit card information.
Copy that. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Jeremy. I create the YouTube channel Gameservatory, and my background is in game development. I'm actually a programmer, but I did live a past life as an actor in the theater. So I try to marry those two loves together. I guess my favorite hobby is, I don't know, going outside once a month. I don't eating food. Yeah, I like a lot of things. I like video games. I like making stuff. That's my hobby. Hanging out with cool people like y'all.
Making stuff.
Yeah, I like making stuff.
All right. I feel
Jeremy.
like you skipped a bit on the introduction, but that's fine.
Oh, right, the credit card part. So my account details.
So, Jeremy, my co-hosts don't know, right? But I've actually prepared a list of questions for you. Okay.
Oh, really?
Awesome. Actually, so I've only prepared one question. I've written it down just in case I've forgotten it. So that is, how do you do it?
No, see, I think it's worth saying if people haven't seen the Gameservatory videos, which more people fucking need to see them. It is some of the best visuals on the platform.
That's really
straight up. And I say that as someone who's gotten awards and shit for visuals. So
well, that means a lot. Then I really
feel
appreciate
confident enough to say that.
Thank you.
It's really excellent.
So Jeremy, his videos, right, involve some what I will generously call visual fuckery.
Yeah, that's accurate.
He'll be running around the Mass Effect space station, interacting with it like he's actually in the game. He'll play the Frogger minigame and then warp inside it, and I just don't understand. And so he's the type of person, right? So the process that happens with the Gameservatory cycle is, so Jeremy releases a video. It blows everyone's tits away because it's amazing.
Thanks.
And then he's like, all right, yeah, that video was really hard to make. It took months. But next time it's gonna be way simpler and just more straightforward, and it won't take as long. He'll say that, and then what will happen is you won't hear from him at all for 2 months. And then he'll be like, so I modeled and animated a spider mech to put my disembodied head in.
Yep.
To move it around. even though I already had a container for it.
That's true.
No, I want to be very direct. What the videos you make have a lot of visual effects that are very well executed shots, and like I really cannot stress this enough to the audience. Go watch the video, and then I want you to compare it to like actual TV productions.
I really appreciate that. That's very sweet.
You I mean, you and I have talked pretty extensively about like color correction matching to backgrounds, because I have an obsessive need to do that, and I know you do too.
It's fun.
It's fun, but it's also just like, it's something that I notice really gets missed often in like major productions. Like they'll have an effect, and I'll be like, this effect would look fine if you
just blended the lighting a little bit. Yeah.
And I feel like the reaction to your videos is one of two sorts. I feel like I think anyone would be impressed by your visual productions, like even like a layman would, a normie, if you would, would be impressed, right? But they wouldn't be as impressed by someone who actually knows. Like, if you actually know about lighting, and you know about VFX, and know about 3D animation, and you know how hard that shit is, and you watch Jeremy's videos, you're like, you fucking wizard, how do you do this? So
Thank you.
It's either, this is pretty cool, or this is literal magic.
Yeah.
Well, the answer is I sold my soul to some eldritch demon. It could have been y'all.
It was me.
Okay. You're both like, I got it.
I have a joint.
I got it.
We have a joint.
I have it right here.
You both are finding out that you thought you had my soul exclusively, and you're like, excuse me?
I only got half?
Half? No wonder this sucks.
So the part of your latest video, which is the video we're going to be talking about, is about economies in games.
Yeah.
And we're going to also be talking about economies in games. Hurrah. So the part of your latest video that just had me on the floor, just had me like, how did he do this? It's a simple shot that I don't think anyone else would notice. It's this part where you're in the market at the beginning, and it pans, and the camera
shot.
and the camera pans, and all of the objects like move, and the lighting adjusts perfectly, and it's like, how?
Like I remember you posted it in the Discord, in our one Discord, and we're like, hey, is like this like look okay? I need some feedback. And I'm like, I don't know if it looks okay. We're all like, it's a fucking masterpiece.
Thank you.
I think I gave like some pointers on the like to take the color in a direction or something. That was it. I think it was the only like feedback.
Yeah, you were totally right.
That's the kind of shot that you will be impressed by if you've already dabbled in like cinematography and VFX and whatever the hell.
For sure.
Which I am just now beginning to dabble. By the way, it might be out by the time this episode airs. But I'll have a video called Danganronpa vs. Mr. Beast, in which I am recreating the Danganronpa class trial in Blender and having this whole animation and 3D visual fuckery. And Jeremy's is helping me with it.
Yep. It's me fun.
Because I am just now learning Blender. And I am now learning firsthand how hard it is when I open Blender, and I gaze at the viewport and despair.
Sure.
Blender.
That's the only way to gaze at Blender.
Kind of terrifying. Like,
it is
as a software. Like I say this as someone who's worked in pretty much fucking every like art medium possible. 3D rigging is a whole other level. It's a whole thing. Like it's complicated, and like, if you want to have, like, even a remotely okay time, you have to learn your fucking shortcuts. Like, which I'm bad
Oh,
at.
the hotkeys will get you all the way there.
Yeah.
I sent the scene I made to Jeremy, and he was like, "Oh, did you like find some way to do this automatically?" And I was like, "No, I did it manually. It took me forever."
and I literally, in my mind, I was like, "This took him so long."
That's yeah, like sometimes yeah, things just take long. Like as somebody who does some traditional 2D animation stuff, like there's just times where you just have to like bite the bullet and you're gonna take time.
Yes, it does. There's a lot of iteration involved with this kind of thing. And so, Harry, to answer your question, how do you do it? And I feel like Aranock Darkfire, y'all really captured the essence of that very well, is you struggle, and then you cry, and then you say, this is fine enough, and you step away. And then you go into a dark hole for 6 months.
And then you show it to other people, and they're like, that's the coolest shit you've ever, and you're sitting there like,
you.
I suck.
I did.
And nothing I make ever is good.
It's nothing is good. I hate it.
Which is why it's so valuable to have creative friends. Like you and I spent, I think, a couple hours the Friday before we released both of our most recent videos.
Totally.
Just talking about each other's stuff.
Yeah.
And God, that was so affirming.
Oh,
like that really.
It was a blast. I had so much fun. And on top of it, it was really nice to have an objective set of eyes on this thing, because this last video was it was meant to be a one-off. It was meant to cover how economies either intentionally or kind of incidentally emerge in video games by developing mechanics around buying things and creating things and stuff. And then that script got way too fucking big. And so I cut it up into pieces and was like, I'll just make this in segments, and it'll be short. And I'll be able to put content out, at least once a month or every other month. And that's my Achilles heel, is like I have good intentions and then just get stuck on the production, and I'm just like, I'll just spend 6 months on this and then get to making more content after that.
What you just described, Jeremy.
Yeah,
that's hubris.
Is that what that is? I believe it.
I know exactly how you feel. Like, there's a point where you just have to learn how to accept that it's good enough,
right? And
just make and release. Like
I knew where you were going before you even said it. I was like, I know.
No, but like really, I think the best thing I ever did for myself was force myself to make a video every single month for that first 12 months, and sometimes that resulted in great stuff, and sometimes it didn't, and sometimes I way overworked myself to do it, and I do not want to ever go back to that level of crunch,
right?
For sure,
right.
Like that was a little unhealthy,
right.
But I think it did teach me a lot by just forcing myself to release.
I love that.
And I mean, but I think with your type of stuff, I think the timeline of doing that is just a little bit longer.
Harry, you did that too, right?
Like a month, yeah. It's one video every week in January or something. It wasn't really intentional. I mean, you could do it if you want.
An awesome turnaround.
It's all right. Not sure if I'd want to do it again.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, it's my output, the time between it got so weird for a period of there, because there's the period between the Matrix video and Queer Relativity, I worked an absolutely horrendous job for 4 months that ruined my mental health and my physical well-being. It was bad. And so I want to be clear, because I was coaching. I loved working with those athletes. The athletes were never an issue with it. I didn't hate being at the job when I was working with the athletes. It was other stuff that that I don't want to talk about. But just in the off chance that someone knows about that job, I heard that I would never want one of my athletes thinking I hated working with them or something, because that would make me feel awful, because they were wonderful kids. But
they were the only redeeming part of that job.
And I love coaching, and I love working with throwing.
That's awesome.
Just, sometimes there are other factors that make things not fun. But yeah, so I spent 8 months between those two videos. So I went from a video every single month, and I think I took 2 months for the Matrix video. But the Matrix video I was actually producing over the previous 8 months. There was continuous work on that. That one I probably put more work into, more so than any other video, except maybe Queer Relativity. And then Queer Relativity was just at one point it was a lot drier and a lot sadder, and then it found its way. And I think that's interesting, just coming back to Jeremy's video, the most recent one, because I think you kind of had the same thing of you found a new project out of this other thing that it originally was.
100%. And I was terrified by it because I got to the end of making this video and I looked at it, and for me, in probably the darkest moment of the production of this video, it felt incomplete, and there was so much more that I wanted to talk about, but I was frankly unwilling to put in any more effort on it than what I'd already done. And that's kind of why I reached out in the first place, was just like, can somebody tell me if this sucks? You know, like, should I just start over?
And that I was having a similar feeling with the Bechtel video. So we just sat down together and we're like, and I'm a very brutally honest person when it comes to feedback things. Like, I have to check it with people. I'm like, what type of feedback do you like to receive? Because if I go with my natural impulse, I will just be like, this needs to change. This needs to change. This is wrong. This is bad. This is good. Like, I'll be very direct.
It's good to have strong sense for your taste and what you think is good. I think it's valuable feedback.
And I always communicate with very specific whys. And I'm always very open to, like, I'm like, I think this doesn't work. Here's why. Here's why you might want to just keep it anyway.
Sure.
Like, that's usually how I give a lot of feedback. But, like, the video was just really good. It just
Thank you. That's really sweet. And
it was really cool to see it before you put in the sound effects.
Because that's like 3/4 of the effect, you know?
I know. I don't think I had music on mine yet. No, I just finished putting music on mine. Yeah. I made some changes, like some really good changes because of your feedback, which was really good.
Well, I'm glad it helped. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I really appreciated that. That whole kind of, like, it was a crucible that ended up turning that video out and made me feel a lot more confident about it, because even though I was really proud of the production of it itself, I felt like the thrust of the message of it was my biggest fear, honestly, besides it feeling incomplete, was that I wasn't acknowledging the biggest giantest elephant in the room, which is the reason why a lot of in-game economies suck is because publishers are greedy, inhuman entities that will suck every penny out of you if you let them. And and that's why a lot of these single-player games have bullshit microtransactions that are like $15 for the ability to, like, apply a blue texture to your, you know, it's like, okay.
So let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about the game economies, which is what the video is about. And I want to start by mentioning I started playing Sonic Frontiers recently.
Okay.
Open world Sonic game. What?
Condolences.
Yeah, I'm playing a Sonic game. Woe is me. All right, so
come at me, Sonic fans.
Send all your mail to
Come
Harry
down into my
particular.
cave. I'll take all
By
of
the
you
way,
on.
by the way, I have this is unrelated, but I have this theory about the Sonic fandom that they all think that most Sonic fans think there's only one good Sonic game, but they disagree on which one it is.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
This is why the Sonic fandom will never like me, because while I can do an impression of like 90% of the characters' voices, I don't think any of the games are actually well designed.
Oh boy. All right, send all your mail to Aranock. Just kidding.
To the left corner.
Sonic. I want to be clear why I think that the Sonic franchise is the most uniquely mediocre game
Interesting.
of all time.
What a hot take. Tell us why.
I think that often it can never decide what its design goals are. And so it becomes these games where a lot of things are kind of implemented in almost interesting ways, and people either cannot stand it because it's incomplete, or adore it because of the idea of what it could be.
And they can bridge that gap in their heads while they're playing.
Yeah, which is, and I want to be clear, I'm not saying the game isn't enjoyable or that there isn't any good elements of any of the games. I'm saying the overall, on the macro, the design of these games are a mess, which most Sonic fans will agree with. It's just that for me, for whatever reason, I unfortunately don't get to enjoy it. I'm very much someone that believes in, like, I want to like things. I hate when I don't like a franchise or don't like something. I wish I could find the joy in these games, but just for me, it doesn't quite land. And I think that sometimes when people's taste, because I don't think my taste aligns with Sonic, they take that as the thing is like essentially terrible, and I think that's why you get a lot of like vitriolic hate for Sonic games. Whereas I'm just kind of like, I just don't think they're masterpieces. Like I just don't think they're masterpieces.
So
they're fine.
I get that.
So
I get that.
Sonic. Sonic is a fascinating franchise to talk about for exactly the reasons you mentioned, Aranock. The one good Sonic game is Unleashed, by the way, and
Darkrai is gonna get murdered for that one.
Sonic Frontiers, the Werehog is fine. Anyway, Sonic Frontiers.
Excuse me? The
no, we're not talking. We're not talking about Sonic. I just wanted to mention Frontiers because. When in the context of game economies, because I started playing Sonic Frontiers, and the thing I wanted to mention forever ago, I was absolutely shocked by the amount of currencies in this game.
Yeah.
The amount of stuff you have to collect in Sonic Frontiers is bonkers. So you have experience points, which give you skill points, which you use to level up in the skill tree and gain new abilities. You have rings, of course, classic, which is your health and your speedometer, I guess. You have memory tokens, which you find throughout the world and you use to progress the main story with each of the characters in each of the islands. You have gears, which you use to unlock levels. In the levels, you get keys, and the keys, you need a certain amount of keys to collect Chaos Emeralds. And you
what a Chaos
get...
Emerald.
So we're at like what, 8 or 9 different economies?
Yes, I'm counting them on my fingers. And if you also count, you can't see them.
Darkrai just summoning.
They're there. They're just made of a fourth-dimensional material.
You can't
part of the Eldritch demon aspect.
You can't see them, but they're there. And
I had to bug you for the mortals. It's fine.
Sure. You got to keep the normies in. There's 3,000 fingers per Eldritch horror, but somehow. Darkrai has 5,000. It's really interesting.
It is.
You know,
it really
I'm
was
sparing
kind of shocked
you.
by that.
And I can see 8 of them.
It's okay because I just keep that form off in the far space and have this mortal shell.
So if you count the Chaos Emeralds as a currency, which I personally do, you collect 7 Chaos MacGuffins to beat the big bad. And you do that on each island. You collect the 7 Chaos Emeralds on the first island, then you go to the second island, and you have to collect them again. Anyway,
that's collecting and spending a currency.
Yeah,
like mechanically speaking.
That is 10 currencies.
10.
Right.
How many Chaos Emeralds do you think it sort of makes up a US dollar? In terms of currency.
What's the conversion rate between a boss death to the dollar and then thus we can...
Is Knuckles the Echidna like part of
It's got to be an hourly rate, right?
It's got to be like an hourly rate, like per gem collected.
For sure.
Which means that like, yeah.
See, now we're getting into the KPI and ROI of the Sonicverse, and
which honestly every Sonic fan does, you know.
Absolutely,
obviously.
They must.
But to bring it around, just to economies, I think there's an interesting thing that we're dancing around here, which is the sort of, there is both the in-game economy, often in a literal like, we're spending money type of economy, but then there's often like 4 or 5 other sort of layered other economies, whether it's experience points, whether it's experience and then experience points, is like ability points, like tool unlock points, like all those types of things pop up in games. But also, and I think Jeremy brought this up, which I'm sure is going to be a bigger part of the next video, because I know this video is mostly on production, but this sort of meta economy of AAA games, which is that you have both an in-game economy and the meta economy of reality, like our economy, and how they interrelate with each other. And it's especially weird encountering that stuff when it can be diegetic. Like, like the economy diegetically exists, but then there's this meta economy of bringing in things. It becomes a very weird commentary on the artificiality of capitalism. Really?
Huh, for sure.
Because you've sort of displayed how like there's these abstractions of money and value, but you can just throw in on fucking any number and it like like
Yes.
Yeah, you stumble on some interesting questions, and then you realize that those questions can be applied to reality. Like, okay, so for the Horizon Zero Dawn meat example,
Yeah.
right?
Oh man,
So-
there's so much time devoted to the meat.
So that
got all
that one is particularly fascinating because you sort of stumble backwards into the horrors of capitalism just by talking about some meat. Anyway,
Sure. Right.
like
Sure.
first you think, okay, so the animal life in the Horizon Zero Dawn world needs to serve some sort of purpose, right? What do you get from animals? You get meat.
Right.
we love flesh.
And
Sipping flesh.
yeah, and okay, so what can we use the meat what can we use the meat for in the context of this game? Okay, we can use it to craft health potions.
Right.
All right, but now we have a problem. Because they're animals and you want it to be a realistic world, there are way too many fucking animals around. And if you kill them all and collect meat, then you will have way too much meat. So, what do we do? Well, shit, there's way too much meat, so to balance it, big quotes, let's make health potions require a truckload of meat for some reason.
Yeah.
You need to squeeze and condense a freaking farm's worth of meat into this bottle of health potion.
Yeah.
Or you, and this is the approach I think it took it. They made the meat drops rare, so like not every animal drops meat, which is weird.
Right. Or they'll drop like, so this is kind of nebulous, and I think it's intentional on their part so that people don't ask these questions. I don't think it's because of that. I think the product of game design is always an approximation of what you're trying to invoke, right? Like how cleanly can you communicate to the player what they're doing and why they're doing it. And when it comes to the meat looting in Horizon Zero Dawn, they came up with like 3 different types of meat. There was like bony meat, fatty meat, and like meaty meat. So, and I think in their mind is like, oh well, this is an approximation of different muscle groups or body parts. But in the process of balancing, I'm guessing, is not every animal drops all 3 types at once, which is weird because every animal that I'm familiar with on the planet Earth has bony meat, fatty meat, and whatever other meaty meat they've got. You know, like it's just a weird thing to try to think that solves that problem necessarily. I don't know. I always feel like I'm being very nitpicky about this when I talk about it because it's such a small aspect of Horizon Zero Dawn. I think that overall the game is a success. Like I have a lot of fun in it.
But the interesting thing that I want to point out is that in that video, by talking about it, you sort of come to this realization that you sort of have this for granted while playing it, that economies are designed, and you take it for granted because you just play through it. Right. And then you realize that, shit, maybe our economy is designed.
Yes.
That's exactly it. Like I have a bit in a script that's coming up, and I think it was intentional. One second.
Like,
find the...
you stumble backwards into this realization by questioning things that most players would just take for granted, and we IRL sort of take for granted.
We assume it's just a natural property.
I've got the quote. It's so perfect. Okay.
Hit us.
Sometimes the most interesting commentary in a work of art is not what was intended, but the natural resulting commentary which occurs from a person living in a specific social context, and that context informing what they create. That's a line from an upcoming video.
100%. That's absolutely right.
It's this interesting thing where like we make games in the context of capitalism that definitely informs the way that the games express things. A game with a really fascinating economy that I want to analyze at some point. I really don't think it's been given the fair shake it is as a political work of art is Dying Light 2. Because like, yeah, it's got some AAA bullshit surrounding it, but the game itself, what it is actually saying with its politics is very fucking interesting. And so its economy, like, yeah, you can get money and buy more expensive, higher quality weapons and things, but at every safe house, there is always an available free set of items. So you're never without your necessities. The structure of this society is built these communal gardens where you can collect healing resources and weapons and things for free at any time. And the implication is that this is done by pretty much everybody, that there's just this social contract of a pseudo-socialist system. And if you make certain choices across the game towards a communal viewpoint and things, it expresses it in the world as a higher degree of movement freedom. There's kind of two paths you can go. You can either give regions to the people, or you can give regions to this faction that are basically fascist cops. Like they wear like cops uniforms from like before the apocalypse and stuff.
Gotcha.
And they suck, but they're interestingly written there and they're treated as human beings. But if you help them, you turn the city into a worse place. Like, yes, there is more combat support for you to kill zombies, but like, and there's more like foot soldiers out in the street killing the zombies. So you have to deal with less of that peril, but you're not actually helping the community in the same way. Whereas if you choose the community, they put in additional things that allow you to move the world more freely, i.e. freedom is found through community. Like it is an expression of the politics through this, and it shows up in a really interesting way in the economy. The fact that every marketplace provides these free items, no matter what. So you're never completely without your necessities. And it's an interesting thing because I think if the game wasn't so wrapped up in trying to achieve certain market things that are built around only gameplay, it could take that messaging further by having only certain factions actually cost things versus like you just doing things that help the community get you stuff. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, like there's a more robust design in that somewhere.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting idea, and the way the quartermaster system works, it's like it's like these communal gardens, all this stuff. It's such a fascinating way to express things purely through mechanical means. But I think a lot of designers are so caught up in living in a capitalist context that they don't consider the possibility of building economies that don't exist in a capitalist context.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's hard to reference what you don't know. You know, like there's like known unknowns and then there's unknown unknowns. And and that's kind of the lovely thing about creating art in this medium is that if you're lucky and you have the people to kind of break the calcification in your brain of a life lived on this planet in this moment, you can begin to experiment with that kind of stuff in ways that like we just don't even think to do otherwise, you know? So
how often do people think about what the implications of an economy in games are? Not often. Right. It's not something I had thought about as heavily.
It's kind of shoe-in. It's kind of fitted into most games, period. I mean, like, I even looking at... Sorry to
No, absolutely. Keep going.
But I think about the new God of War games, which I think there's a lot of really solid design in those games. I've enjoyed both of them immensely, but one thing that just grinds my gears about those games is just the needless, overly atomic economy of gear management and like upgrading, and I'm just like, some version of that existing is completely fine, but what they ended up with is so just molecular in its micromanagement and need to go find any number of like pointless things to make stuff that it's just like, this is stupid. Like it's wasting my player. I want to hit stuff. You know, I'm playing God of War to hit things and to like experience like, you know, Dad of War. That's what I want. But for some reason, I'm chasing down hardened elf bone over here in, you know, at Valhalla.
You know,
like,
I think
who cares? You know,
I think the reason this is so prevalent in AAA game design as well,
it's Destiny's
it's
fault.
it's that fucking guy. It's that fucking guy again. Just
explain the concept of that fucking guy.
So, that fucking guy is the worst player imaginable. And
Yes.
and AAA games are designed for that fucking guy. They want to please that fucking guy.
Or even just to not upset that fucking guy. So
Yeah.
Get that fucking guy reviews on the internet.
And so I think game designers often fall into the pitfall of thinking, okay, so having to deal with an economy and inventory management and like upgrading. It's a lot of you know, small dopamine hits on the brain. It's something
Sure.
that everyone
100%.
can understand and get into.
Mm-hmm.
So even that fucking guy can understand the concept of, hey, I had this thing and now I got a slightly better thing.
Sure.
Or-
Yeah. Well, right. And so like that. Sorry, I had a thought and it left me. Ooh. What was the? Oh, so the thought was when it comes to this kind of the atomic nature of upgrading and amplifying and customizing that's found in like God of War and Ragnarok, it feels like at what point are you giving the player tools to curate their own experience, and at what point are you asking the player to finish your job? Like, there's so much about the combat in God of War that works really well, but I look back at the old trilogy and I think about how accessible a lot of the special moves are and learning the combos and all that stuff, and all that felt really good. You could learn it intentionally and be a very stylish, skillful player, or you could button mash, and both of those people are going to have a good time. But in the new games, if you aren't engaging with this very deep customization and upgrade and hunting down resources to do the upgrades, you're like, only one type of gamer is going to enjoy that experience, the person who likes farming for loot and deeply tweaking these aspects. The person who's there for the God of War experience, the smashing, I personally got very frustrated with a lot of that, because there are things that I was like, I want to use both of these combos at the same time, but I can only assign one to the axe. And then you get into the question of, well, why can Kratos only do one motion with his body at a time, which is very, very nitpicky and kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about. But, you know,
it's also like, what is that gear grind providing? Like,
right.
I play an unhealthy amount of Destiny 2. I adore Destiny 2.
Respect.
But like, I am, when I am trying to get certain pieces of gear or weapons or things, what I'm trying to do is fulfill a new option or ability that will allow for a build to function. Like, there's a build crafting system there that's interesting, and I'm trying to get the stats and the perks that will allow me to do a synergy or do something interesting with the build, or, you know, maximize uptime on certain weapons. But like, it is having a direct effect on the experience of play that I'm having. It's not just, here's some numbers. And Destiny has kind of continuously moved away from the numbers stuff for the most part.
Cool.
It's kind of annoying. You still kind of have to grind a little bit to get up to the like gear level that allows you to run high level content. But like, the interest is more in like, for example, getting a new exotic weapon, it's going to do something completely different than nothing else does mechanically.
Right,
I'm interested in the mechanics of this thing,
Yes,
and how it's going to synergize with the other mechanics.
The sensation of something new, right?
Exactly, but you're actually physically doing other stuff. You're getting to do new things, and I think the problem with a lot of currently AAA games is there is no purpose to grinding. It is there to create
number go
grind.
up.
I'm scared to like open an inventory screen in a AAA game nowadays, because it's just like there's so many things and like numbers and the fucking little cursor thing that you control with the controller that goes around, and you hit something for like half a second before it actually does the thing. It's all just Destiny now.
It does, yeah. I feel like that's fair, and in Destiny's world, that it works because they've developed a game around it.
It's built around it. It is an interesting part of the player experience. It is
but
not
in other games, it's like
an attempt to pad out runtime.
Sure.
Like,
and also there's the multiplayer component, right? Which is
like I'm playing with my friends. Like it's
exactly. And so like I feel like with that, when you have a live service that way, there's just, and obviously Aranock, you have a lot more experience in Destiny 2 than I do. But like even in that, like you can kind of understand why there is this kind of incremental economy in a multiplayer game, because part of the joy is being with people, and the secondary or ancillary benefit is that you get cool new shit every time you play with these people. But the foremost thing is the people.
That's exactly it, and that's exactly why like some of the best stuff is locked behind raids and things. But it's like like getting a raid exotic is as much about the hooting and hollering and the fucking call with your clan mates as it is the item itself. It's serving a purpose. It's serving an experience. And I think that there are games where I want that experience. Not all the time. And I have my issues with how, like, I don't like super grindy things. I'm very much of the, like, you should get a thing if you do the thing. You know, but I have my issues with RNG and stuff in Destiny 2. But the point being, a lot of these AAA games are trying to pad runtime. They want to say 80-hour game, 90-hour game, 100 hours of gameplay.
Right.
And when you approach it from the standpoint of number of hours played is the only valuable thing, I think you limit what your art can be.
I completely agree.
Like, I've heard a lot of complaints about God of War Ragnarok that it pads all this time when they just want to experience the story. And I think about games like BioShock. You know, maybe 20 hours to play through that game.
Right.
It's a worthy experience.
Not even that.
I played it multiple times and enjoyed it. And I'm not going to go back and replay a 70-hour game. I'm not.
Right.
Unless you're me and you replay Persona 3 every year.
Oh, friends.
I
say that, but I do. There are a few 70-hour games that I'm like,
that's fair though. Like we all have our specific things that we really, really love that are really long.
Right.
Yeah, but like I would much rather have a very well designed 3-hour experience than 60 hours of bullshit and 10 hours of things I like. You know?
For sure, absolutely. Yeah,
and I think it's sad of AAA, where AAA is at, because I'm like, I feel like if they move towards creating experiences like creators that have made things like Mundown, right? If you've played Mundown's a masterpiece. And
okay, I haven't heard of that.
It's like 3 or 4 hours long, and like
cool.
If you want more information, I did a video on it. Ragnarok's did a video on it, and
Jeremy, you'll love it. It has this pencil sketch aesthetic. It's great.
Okay, so all of the textures in it's called Mundown, Mundaun.
Rad. I'll look it up.
It's fucking amazing. It's all done in this traditional language, which isn't heavily spoken in a lot of places, called Romansk, and it's there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going on with linguistics and with meaning and with memory, and I did a video on it ages ago. I love it. I love that game. But yeah, Ragnarok's and Pimscript both did excellent videos on it, and Ragnar's is more focused on like why you should play the game. So if people are curious, I'd say go watch Ragnar's video first, play the game, and then watch Pim's.
The creator of the game is a dream guest I have on Video Gems. So
awesome. We'll just all harass that person until they say yes.
Yeah.
That's how you make friends, right?
But
Do you think
my
they'd
point is
be
that-
Mundown to come on?
Maybe.
But yeah, like Mundown is a solid experience, and it knows what it's doing, and I think it's got to be. It tells the story it wants to tell. It expresses the art it wants to express in an interesting, interactive way. And there's so many indie games that I think have been far more memorable over the last 10 years because they do what they need to do and get out. You know.
And yeah, indie games don't need to think about that fucking guy.
They
Right.
Because they're just like, well, if it's not made for you, it's not made for you, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I feel like a lot of the AAA, I don't have any experience in the AAA environment. That's something that, for my own mental well-being, I always avoided as a developer.
Very
But
understandable.
yeah, I mean, like, I love making games, but I never was interested in working 80 hours a week. That's just not in my bones. I will work 80 hours a week, but on shit that I care about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big difference between
Indeed. And so I
working
just
80
never
hours in a passion
tried.
project and knowing
Yes.
you don't have to work 80 hours versus mandatory 80 hours at a
100%.
company that treats you like garbage.
that garbage that wants you to sleep under your desk, and I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
And
And all to model one fucking rock
sure.
on.
I need that plan done by Tuesday.
But
Here's
Right.
here's the frustrating thing,
Hmm.
especially for work like this. If they worked less hours, they would produce more stuff.
yeah. I completely agree.
We've got studies that show the productivity of people just tanks
Yes.
when you're exhausted
Yes.
like that.
Yep.
And
When you don't have your own agency and time with your life, people just can't turn out work that consistently. Right.
I think it's every 10 hours after 30 hours, you have these like negative drips. Basically,
Recently, game studios have been having massive successes with 4-day work weeks.
I love,
Yeah,
which
I
is
love
nice.
seeing
It's-
the news
which is
about 4-day
huge.
work weeks.
Yeah.
that's a huge win because we should
Yep.
be working about 30 hours a week and we should be working for about 4 days a week.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, if you think about like humans as a species, like where we came from, like it's unnatural to work this much. You know, like it's not in our it's not in our
Never.
genetic history, if you will. To like we have not developed to be machines. Like that's just not how we function. So the fact that we've created a civilization that expects that much of us, it's no surprise that people are so sick. You know, like of course we are. We're just debilitated by the world that we live in. Not to get super
No, but
You
like
know.
I think it's worth saying. I think it connects
Yeah.
back to the economy stuff.
right.
And I don't think
Yeah.
it's a mistake that so much of things have inserted the values of productivity and production into the economies of games, into the
Right.
economy of our downtime. And the fact that it then loops it into the meta economy, the real economies of our world that interrelate. It's like games literally, some games literally ask you to pay to exist
Yeah.
in a product you've already purchased.
And I think people more recently have gotten really sick of it, right?
Yeah.
Like even more players have started realizing that their gaming experiences in these really big AAA big budget popular games are becoming as grindy and currency focused and money focused as their real lives.
Right.
Which it sucks. Games as escapism or whatever.
Yes.
But
It's turning our downtime into another form of work.
Yeah, for sure.
and then you get into the whole literal play to earn games that happened for a bit, and yeah.
Well, and it's
all
very
the
pervasive
NFT
on.
garbage.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, I think NFTs gave I think NFT and crypto shit gave microtransactions an easy in.
Yeah.
I
Everyone
think
was like, well, microtransactions, at least it's not NFTs.
yeah. So like
That's sorry. Go ahead, Garth. Right. I don't want to interrupt.
I think that people should be bullying games for microtransactions as much as they did for NFTs. That's my point. And they got away with us. They've been normalized. They've been like
Sure. Right. Yeah.
they got away with it.
Yeah.
They did.
No,
Yeah.
I don't heavily mind cosmetic stuff that's very unintrusive in how it's shown in the UI. Like I think my primary issue with Destiny 2 is that it's so like, hey, look at the brightness store, look at the brightness store.
Yes.
Spend silver. But I don't think the existence of it is a particular problem because like, and I think especially in free games when it's just purely cosmetics, I'm pretty okay with it. Yeah, I think the instant that, and this is what we were talking about earlier, I think it's the instant that these microtransactions become a part of gameplay in any way.
Yeah. Well,
purchasing the stuff you need to craft your gear or whatever. It's gross.
It's all contextual too. Like I'm firmly on board with people paying more money for extra cosmetics and things like that if that speaks to them and they're excited about it. I think the amount of money charged is the factor that's involved there. Like I think of us like the latest Assassin's Creeds are their cosmetics cost about a third of what the game is. It can, which is wild. Like on one hand, like I fully support Ubisoft making money off of cosmetics because an artist had to sit down and conceptualize and rig and animate and texture and model all of that stuff. So sure, make money off of it, but don't make $15 off of like one skin or like and so it's just kind of like, what are you doing? Like, and I think what they're doing is they know that there's a cohort of people who will desire that enough to spend that money, and they've done the math to figure out, well, we'll probably make more money off of these people than we will off just selling this to the general public. Yeah. But to me, like that calculus is so jaded, so
It's trying to spear a whale, right? If people don't know the economy term spearing a whale. Whales are a type of person with a massive amount of free, like easy to spend money, who are bad at controlling their money. And your goal is to get them to spend as much money as possible. And this goes back to a lot of like the really predatory microtransactions of mobile games.
Right.
Is I think where this term started getting real traction as a term, like it had existed before in economics in general, but in the context of games, I think it became a bigger thing, which is just, you find that person that'll spend $2,000, and it doesn't matter if 2,000 people play your game for free as long as you get one person to spend $2,000. But these predatory practices, which this is what they are, target people who are susceptible to these things, and often in ways that are extremely manipulative and extremely targeted at vulnerable individuals in certain ways. And so,
for sure.
When it's I like say selling... unintrusive, what I mean is like you it should take effort for me to go find pay to access cosmetics.
Yeah, like I have a small nephew, right? My sister has a son who is small. And I actually warned her about it. I warned her that like I don't care what games he plays. I would be worried if he plays Fortnite or Roblox.
Sure.
For those specific things, the predatory and Roblox especially because he's interested in game development.
Okay. I'm not familiar with their
stay away
economies.
from Grand Theft Auto 5. Why? Because of all of the shooting and the guns? No, you can buy the in-game currency.
No, genuinely, I don't even want to know how much money has been funneled into that game over the years because of kids getting their mom's, credit card.
Oh yeah,
probably.
Oh yeah.
Like,
by the way, Jeremy.
By
the way, Jeremy, you mentioned Assassin's Creed earlier. I just wanna mention a really funny thing that I thought of while watching your video. While you mention Assassin's Creed is that in the world of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, being a blacksmith must be the most lucrative job in existence.
100%.
Like a mountain of gems behind.
They like turn around, like take off their blacksmithing like apron and just put on the most like regal, like gold gilded. They're like, "Pardon me while I go." It's like, oh, okay, I work on one sword a year.
Just being a blacksmith, you make bank. Just one person comes. upgrade my sword, please. That'll be 200,000 emeralds.
Yes, and it's like I sure. I mean, so I like Assassin's Creed. Okay? Please don't judge me. I actually.
It's fine. Hey, I admitted to being addicted to Destiny 2. You're fine.
I'm glad that I'm glad that this is a safe place. But I like Assassin's. There's actually, I'm one of these days I'll probably make a video about why I love Assassin's Creed so much. But I like those games in spite of myself, in spite of like my better nature. But that's like one aspect of this new trilogy that is just particularly galling to me, is this weird shoehorning of currency, like so many different currencies to make really basic things. Assassin's Creed has always had a version of buying gear and upgrading gear, but it was very streamlined and straightforward, and you could engage with it or not and still enjoy those games. But now it's baked into the experience so much that that it already takes games that are rather bloated and just bloats them massively out of proportion. Anyway, that's
inflates
my
them,
complaint.
if you will.
Inflates, if you will. Yeah. For sure. Well, and for sure. So
yeah.
But that's the other thing about us. Like that was the other thing that I'd like to talk about at some point in the future on my channel is the discussion of rewarding the player for going through a quest line or something with a cosmetic. And there's kind of a ongoing struggle with that too, and it has been for a long time, of removing content from a game that was developed in the life cycle of the main game that's been removed to sell later. And that happened years and years ago. I mean, I think back to like Mass Effect 3 when they cut one of the most critical squad mates of that game to sell it as day one DLC. And then even for cosmetics, like there are cosmetics in the latest Assassin's Creed games that it would make sense to find in like their science fiction temples, if you will. Like when you get into the science fiction-y aspects of those games, it would be cool to find a piece of like techno gear that you could equip. But you can't. They don't. I mean, there's some of that, but if you want the really nifty looking stuff, you have to buy it, and it's like you're kind of robbing the player of the ability to like feel like they succeeded in finding this really rare, cool thing. And also there's also something to be said about playing with the aspects of customization and self-expression in games. Like I think cosmetics are frequently monetized because they're seen as ineffectual, or like, what's the word? Like an immaterial thing that you can just remove and the game is fine. But I kind of have this like chunk of me that doesn't believe that. Like, I think if you're gonna offer the ability to customize and express, like that's an integral experience as a player. Like, maybe I'm a rare, but I will dress up Ezio in different like different colors of his gear, depending on how I think he's feeling during the like era of that I'm playing through.
Wow.
I will roleplay. I roleplay almost every character I play.
I think saying it's completely incidental to the experience of the game is just wrong.
Yeah.
And that's I just think that like it's the only form of microtransaction that I'm comfortable with in any form at all. Yeah. And again, it's a problem that's an offshoot problem of just developers need to be paid, and games take a long time to make.
Indeed.
But I think especially if you're a AAA studio, you better be giving like free cosmetic options that are decent and ways to like unlock the cosmetics slowly through other methods.
Right.
And it better not be a fucking like gacha game. Like
like the gambling essentially, right?
Yeah, like like I think the instant it becomes gambling is when it becomes really fucking awful. But I do think that it's worth saying that like I think all microtransactions to some degree are a little malicious, and I think that includes the cosmetic ones. Like as you said, it's an integral part of the character, like the player experience.
Whether you engage with it in that sort of imaginative way or not, like the fact that it's there, like
it's a system.
I don't know. It's a system, and it like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I wish that Assassin's Creed would build mechanics around And they did, like in Assassin's Creed Liberation, you can play as Aveline, and you can dress up as...
I don't even know about that game. We've reached the level of Assassin's Creed where there are games that I don't even know about.
I don't think you can
You're
buy
like-
it anymore.
No, I don't think... Yeah, I think it's like included with other things. You can't actually buy this game. So it's a port. It's from the Vita, I think, to PC and the newest, like, whatever the previous console generations are these days. But essentially, like, the assassin you play as, she can blend in to different classes in society, and you have to, like, wear different uniforms that change the way she plays based on what you're wearing. And to me, like, that, it's kind of Hitman-y that way, you know? Like, I like that. Like, to me, that expresses something about the time period and her status and the way in which she can move through the world. Like, that gives me a visceral experience over just changing colors of costume, which I think is valuable on its own. But in my opinion, like, cosmetics can and ideally should be tied to gameplay. Like, I think that, or if it makes sense for the game, you know, like, I think that can be a really fun thing to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
That does sound very cool and Hitman-y. I'm shocked that the Assassin's Creed series isn't more Hitman-y.
I agree completely. There's so much
Maybe just
about
play
those
Hitman.
games. You know, that's what I'm hearing, is that I should probably just give up Assassin's Creed and play Hitman. But Assassin's Creed,
Well,
I think what
the
pulls me back is it's so stylish, and it does two things at once. It's both historical, kind of, and science fiction, and I love that
Kind of.
conglomeration of things, you know?
I love mixing of things like that. It's always fun.
Yes.
Like, I love a good sci-fi fantasy, you know, like, where it's kind of both. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Everyone should
Yes.
read the Locked Tomb series. That's all.
Okay, I haven't
will
heard of
never
that. What
not
is it
stop
called?
Screaming about the Locked Tomb series. All right. It's about space necromancers.
Oh, of course.
But, like, how do I explain? Like, I don't think that properly explains, like, what it is in a good way. Like, I hate
Okay.
the way that we've kind of boiled down, like, trying to describe a series as, like, the blurb, you know?
The elevator pitch.
The elevator pitch. Like, I just don't like that. But if I had to put it in those words, it'd be that. Like, it's space necromancers have a bad time. But, like,
That's the title of this
it's-
episode.
space necromancers have a bad time.
It's gonna just so you know, this is gonna be Video Gems episode 2. Space necromancers have a bad time.
Awesome.
That doesn't
yeah.
even make any sense, but okay.
No.
But, like, I think it's the best way to describe it is it is a series about very messy people trying to process things while dealing with a very uncaring universe. It's a very interesting piece about like it's the character writing that makes it interesting, you know.
Cool.
And that's what I would say is, like, if you want really, really well written characters set in a very unique setting, the unique perspective, that does things with structure that I've not really seen outside of a few things.
That's cool. Yeah.
Like, there's some really cool structure stuff in there, and it does like it changes the point of view between each book to a different character, and it gives so much about, like, perspective and how that affects the way that we understand the world around us and things. The second book's point of view character, Harrow, who's a main character in the first book, like, she's probably one of the best interpretations of mental illness that I've seen in anything. Like, I feel very personally represented by her. I think the handling of her is very good. That's not a flattering thing for me to say either. Like, that is not flattering for myself, but, like, it is honest. And
Fair.
like, it does such an interesting blend of fantasy and sci-fi, and it's, like, high fantasy and it's very sci-fi. Like, it's both
Cool.
at the same time.
Hell
It's
yeah.
really cool.
That's
I love
awesome.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
we have reached the end of this episode.
Oh no.
We will.
sorry.
I'm gonna I'm gonna end this episode by giving you a little game, a little quiz.
Okay. Fun.
Um,
I have one thing I wanted to ask you about or talk to you about, but we can do that after. Or you can
Alright.
save it for
Ask
extra
first.
content for
Uh,
your subscribers.
I'm
You
gonna
give us $1.
we'll be
Well,
we'll be
actually, no,
recording a
$3.
we'll be recording a bonus episode after this, so ask me about it then.
Oh, okay. Right, that's
Um,
what I'll do. Okay.
That's for patrons, by the way.
Hey, patrons, just saying. Just
Just
saying.
saying.
Patreon.com/darkfry.
Oh yeah.
All right, so gonna give you a little quiz to end
Okay.
things off. It's a little game I like to call, is this the name of a band or a brand of cereal?
All right. Awesome.
Starting with Hall & Oates.
Oh, that's a band.
Wrong, that is a cereal, actually.
Wait, what?
You
Well,
are.
somewhere in America there is a folk band called Hall & Oates.
is a band. Hall & Oates is a band.
Next
That's
is Oops All Berries.
Oh, obviously a cereal.
Wrong, that is a Scandinavian boy band.
No,
Well-
I did look this up. Hall & Oates is a famous pop duo.
I'm beginning to see
Okay, cool.
Are
something
all of
here.
these
I think
both?
there's a trick to these questions. I don't want to reveal it yet. I have.
Darkfry
I have
just
an
wants to
idea.
catch me.
And that'll be it for this episode of Video Gems. Please subscribe to the channel. Rate us good on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasty goodness. Jeremy, plug your things.
Sure, yeah. So, Gameservatory is on YouTube. You can find it at Gameservetory. Oop, I don't know if that's right. You should probably learn how to spell.
Replace the con and
Yes.
conservatory with games.
Thank you, Aranock. Aranock knows my channel better than I do. Yeah, so check me out there. I've got a Ko-fi. I can be found on Ko-fi under the same name. And yeah, be looking forward to more content. Hopefully.
Hell yeah.
I mean,
really
definitely.
good.
Just hopefully before 6 months from now.
I just saying, it's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go watch it.
Yeah.
Gameservatory. It's really good. That's our review. So yeah, subscribe, like, do all the good YouTube stuff on both this channel and Jeremy's. Leave a review on Spotify and whatever. And see you next time, folks. Love ya.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.